Howdy friends, my name is Milo, and welcome back to another episode of Awful Archaeology. As you can tell by not only the title of this video, but also the fact that I am sitting down holding my laptop that I got as a birthday present when I turned 14, this episode is gonna be a little bit different. Over the last couple days, I have been working on scripting the next episode of Awful Archaeology, discussing the Gosford glyphs, which is something that has been time-consuming and painful. But it was brought to my attention that the last episode of Awful Archaeology discussing the Baghdad battery... Oh, hey, Stinky. You want to sit here with me? Yeah? This is Lou. All right, Lou, do you want to hang out with me for this video? Here, I can hold you like this. You can be a small baby. Or you can be weird like that. That works too. Okay, never mind. Go. Please don't walk on my keyboard. I don't need this right now. Okay, fair enough. You just want to hang out with me, don't you? Okay, let me get you a bed. Baby. What are you looking at me for? Little bastard. Anyway, as I was saying, the last episode of Awful Archaeology discussing the Baghdad battery drew the attention of a very interesting character. None other than Dr. Brad Hafford of the Artifactually Speaking YouTube channel, which if you are not currently subscribed to it, you should absolutely do because they have some unbelievable content. Now this video has been doing very well. At the time of me recording this, it has over 40,000 views, so it's safe to say that a lot of people have seen this professional's take on my video. But I wanted to take this as an opportunity to share a little bit of scientific discourse within this community that we've built here. I am very accustomed to listening to the other things that people have to say on my videos, considering that the majority of my conspiracy things could be classed as reaction content. But what we have not done here yet is listened to the words of someone who is a trained professional who is analyzing my content. So today I am going to be watching this video for the very first time. I've watched the first couple minutes of it, but I decided to stop before I did this video. And I want to do this to highlight how important discourse is in any scientific community. If your only exposure to archaeology has been my videos, then you may think that it's just arguing and telling people that they're full of shit, but I promise you that is only the part that I do. What, Lou? Oh my god, what is that? Is that Milo from the future? Milo from the future, what do you want? I'm really glad you asked, Milo from the past. I'm here to tell you about today's sponsor. Because today's sponsor is Factor 75. Factor's menus are updated weekly to include a earth-shattering 27 plus meals. Factor delivers fresh, ready-made meals to your doorstep. And since there's no prep, there is no mess. And also, since there's no prep, it allows you to be able to fill the rest of your day with the things you love. There's also plenty of accommodations for different dieting options, such as vegan, vegetarian, calorie smart, and keto. And I mean, with those 27 plus meal options per week, there's gotta be something for you there. You can use my link or go to go.factor75.com and use code POGMM130 to get $130 off across 6 boxes. Now that right there is a steal of a deal. And then I have to just do a exit strategy. This'll get so many clicks. Me and this cat that I just found would like to thank French 75. Once again, I'd like to thank Factor 75 for sponsoring this video, and now let's get right back into it. Look what I got. This is not mine. This is my roommate's cat, but it will be mine eventually. Hi, little one. Is that not close enough to me for you? You want to stand on my lap? Okay, never mind. I guess I'll go fuck myself. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, welcome to episode 6.5 of Awful Archaeology, where we will be discussing... I'm going to be trying to frame this video in such a way that you do not have to watch episode 6, but it would definitely help. So if you have not watched it, you can check it out here or afterwards. All right, let's get into it.
I'm archaeologist Dr. Brad Hafford.
Hello, archaeologist Dr. Brad Hafford. It's an honor to be here with you.
And today I'm going to be reacting to a video that was posted recently by Mini Minuteman, Milo Rossi.
That's me. Through all of my time in university, I have heard professors and doctors say my name quite a lot in, having conversations with me. There's something about the way that Dr. Hafford starts this video that feels more like I'm being referred to as almost a peer instead of a student and a professor. And there's something about that which, right off the bat, is making me very happy, and I feel the imposter syndrome starting to melt away.
Now, Milo does a great job of debunking conspiracy theory. Most archaeologists don't spend a lot of time trying to do that because the leaps of logic that are involved with the people that want to believe the conspiracy theories are pretty convoluted and it's difficult to convince them otherwise. They really want to believe in this.
That is actually a very good point that Dr. Hafford makes here, is the fact that if someone wants to believe something, they're going to believe it no matter what. A misconception that I think a lot of people have with my debunking videos is that I am trying to change the mind of the person on which I am commentating. And most of the time, I am not. My conspiracy debunking videos are geared towards people who might be on the fence. Someone who, with the influence of a handful of videos, could find themselves straying away from fact and towards the world of fiction. Not that there's anything wrong with fiction. I suppose in this case, I should refer to it as bullshit.
So, you can show them all of the evidence, and then they will claim that you are just ignoring their evidence. It means that you could spend your time in a much more valuable way by doing your own research and kind of forgetting about the conspiracy theories.
That's a really good point. I probably could be doing a lot better things with my time.
I'm glad that Milo takes it on. He's got a lot of personality, a lot of bravado. It's a really interesting series of videos that he does, and I hope that he continues.
Aw, that's really sweet. Thanks, dude. That really means a lot.
Now, this particular object, it's closer to my field of expertise. I'm a Near Eastern archaeologist. I work primarily in Iraq now.
That's the title I was looking for. I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the video because I couldn't remember exactly what it was, but Dr. Hafford is a Near East archaeologist, and therefore he is actually professionally qualified to talk about this find.
This one was found in Iraq, and I covered it in a podcast. Don't wreck yourself. It's a lot of fun.
Well, Dr. Hafford, if you're looking for another podcast, I'm more than down to do one with you. I think it would be very interesting.
We went over a lot of different things, and the Baghdad battery came up, and I'd done very basic research on it and said, well, you know, maybe it could be a battery. We don't really know.
That's really interesting. So on the screen here, Dr. Hafford puts up a little sign that says, and some of what I said at that point was wrong. I am watching this in anticipation of him telling me where I was wrong. I really want to emphasize the fact that when you watch my videos, I am bringing to you all of the information that I can find and everything that I have personally vetted, but that does not mean that I have the full truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If there is something that I said that seems like it is unfounded, unsubstantiated, or erroneous, it could very well be because it is. And science is practically built on the idea that you just have to tell everyone when they fuck up, so I appreciate this.
It certainly didn't power ancient lights.
It didn't power ancient lights. That's a very good point.
If you search for the Baghdad battery, you're going to find some basic things, but you're not going to find the original data. You've got to dig for that.
That's another very good point that Dr. Hafford makes here, is that original information about the Baghdad battery is very scarce because it was lost. I don't think I was able to find more than maybe one primary source. The Baghdad battery was an artifact discovered in the Iraqi city of Salman Pak, which at the time was known as Rajut Rabu. This is meta. I'm watching a reaction video of myself. Oh my god, I really am a YouTuber, god damn it. And the location where the batteries were discovered is located about 15 miles to the south. Oh man, this is nerve-wracking. He hasn't even said anything yet, and I feel like I'm being tested. I'm watching a professor talk about my video, and I'm just waiting for him to say something about how I'm wrong. While today the settlement is known as Salman Pak, in antiquity it was known as Almadain, as is indicated by my terrible handwriting.
It's true that you might think that it was found in Baghdad, but...
Oh, I thought he was going to say that it's true that my handwriting is terrible.
But it was not, but it was found on the outskirts of Baghdad. There are conflicting reports. So I found these conflicting reports. The very earliest one in 1938 says that it's southeast of Baghdad, which is what he's showing. But it also says it's on the train line to Kirkuk, which is north of Baghdad. So I finally found a great resource from 1964 from someone who was working in the National Museum in Iraq.
Wow. I know that this is quite literally your job, but your research is really goddamn impressive. I tip my hat to you, sir.
And they gave us the specific information. In the course of earth-moving operations at mile 4/4 on the Baghdad-Bakuba line, where a series of hillocks known locally as Kuyut Rabu'a, the workmen came across an ancient burial covered with stone slab.
The fact that it actually has some context information here, at least right off the bat. I never came across any information that talked about the stone slab that the burial was covered with. The only information I found about the burial was that allegedly the jars that were found, the batteries, were located at the corners of the burial site, but not knowing what the layout or contents of the burial site were does not actually explain that much about it.
So, he's reporting that the earth moving was originally done by the rail department, but not for the building of the railway. This was to get dirt to fill in low-lying areas where mosquitoes were breeding. And they say that they found a grave. They did, but that's why they called in the antiquities department. They then began an excavation of this site, and they say that it's a Parthian settlement. So this tells us that it's on the Baghdad-Bakuba line at 4 miles north of Baghdad.
I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. It is your job, but I'm still impressed.
So it's not at Salman Pak.
So that's actually pretty interesting. Using a handful of primary sources, Dr. Hafford was actually able to narrow down where this location may have been. We'll try and go back into my sources and see where I found that it said Salman Pak, but interesting that over time, like a game of broken telephone, the actual discovery location has been misquoted in presumably more than one publication.
It is home to countless archaeological sites, one of the most impressive being Tak Khusra, which is the remains of a Persian palace.
Salman Pak is, essentially, it's where ancient Ctesiphon was. That's where the Tak Khusra is. I've been part of a project that has been helping to reinforce it.
Oh my god! Dude, okay, when I said that this guy was qualified to talk about this site more than anyone I knew, I didn't know that he had worked on restoring one of the monuments that I talked about in this video. Man, this is so cool. I'm stoked about this.
He also says that Al-Midain is best known for finding the Baghdad Battery. I doubt that's true. It's best known for Ctesiphon and the Tak Khusra.
You got me. It is probably best well known for that. You win this one.
As in the 1930s, there was by and large very little care taken for archaeological diligence, as much of it was unfortunately a for-profit business. Even everyone's favorite Hollywood archaeologist acknowledges this in Indiana Jones.
Okay, I'm probably going to get a little defensive here now.
Uh-oh. I stepped on some toes.
To call all archaeologists from the 1930s for-profit and essentially just looters, I think that's unfair. It is true that they were not the same diligence that we have today, but most archaeologists, certainly good ones, and I would hope that the vast majority of them, even in that period, were mostly concerned with finding out how ancient people lived. That's what we do. So yeah, I'm probably defending archaeologists too much.
I don't think you're defending archaeologists too much in the slightest here. In fact, I would be surprised if you didn't. This is your field after all, and you've been surrounded throughout your life with people who are passionate and diligent about learning about the past. And I do admit, I do speak in, I think, a little bit more gross generalization than I probably ought to in that previous clip. But I think that at least the modern public perception of archaeology historically tends a lot more towards the it was all in good faith than the fact that there was a lot of early archaeology which was a little bit nefarious. I also do feel the need in my videos to try and make my audience aware of the fact that archaeology has not always been the field it is today. Now, of course, we are painfully aware of this in examples like anthropology, which was spawned out of the same minds as scientific racism, things like eugenics, but obviously has changed quite a lot over time, now being actually the study of people. So I do admit that was an overcorrection on my part, but it was part of the attempt that I have on my channel to inform my audience that this field has morphed a lot over time and has become something which is unbelievably well calibrated and scientific.
The other thing that kind of irks me is that he's using Indiana Jones as an example.
What's wrong with Indiana Jones? I fucking love Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones is a fiction.
And I'm actually very glad that you bring that up, Dr. Hafford, because I feel like this is an opportunity to have a little bit of an intergenerational dialogue here. Yes, I've been interested in archaeology my whole life, but that whole life has been less than 25 years. So when I discuss archaeology with my peers, friends, and colleagues, our perception of what archaeology means is very different. And you would be absolutely shocked at the amount of people who will immediately jump to Indiana Jones when I tell them about what I do. Indiana Jones was an inspiration to a lot of people in my age demographic. A suave, adventuring, exploring icon who popularized the idea of archaeology and brought it from dusty bookshelves to the silver screen. So while it's very easy for you and I to sit here and acknowledge how fictitious and oversimplified the archaeological world of Indiana Jones is, for the people who watch my videos, many of whom don't have an archaeological background, it's very important for me to differentiate. Sorry, a cat decided to play your video. Can I help you with something? There we go. I feel the need to try and differentiate between the fact and fiction of what many of us have been shown is archaeology. And you are right, he is not a representative of all of the archaeologists in the 1930s. In fact, I bet he would represent very few of them.
We do know that the Baghdad Battery was first analyzed by Wilhelm Konig. In 1938, he was the director of the Museum of Antiquities in Baghdad. But the problem is we have no idea where it was actually found.
Yes, it was analyzed by Wilhelm Konig. In 1938, he published a short article about it in German. He was not the director of the museum, though. He was the director of the museum's laboratory.
Damn it. This is why you should always fact check me, people.
And he really wanted to believe they were batteries. So
I'm actually really glad you mentioned that. That was something I was noticing about Konig's work, or what little I could find of it, was that he seemed very, very intent on the idea that it was a battery.
To the best of our knowledge, the jars were discovered as part of the excavation for a rail line in 1936. We don't know if they were discovered by Konig, who was an acting archaeologist at the time, or if they were discovered by a worker and just donated to the museum.
they were not found in the excavation of a rail line. They were dug by the rail company, but they were moving dirt in order to do something else. The rail was already built.
This is something that I absolutely love about archaeologists, and I hope that you see where I get it from now. Because, and I mean this in the kindest way possible to you, Dr. Hafford, we love to correct fucking everything. It wasn't found in the excavation for a rail line, it was found in the excavation of the dirt to fill in the rail line. That's important.
He says we don't know who found it. We do know who found it. In Al-Haik, in Sumer, 1964.
Well, I guess we do know who found it. Well, I didn't know who found it, but he knows who found it, and I am very impressed. I'm curious, the reference paper that you are discussing here, if this is from a personal collection or a local library, or if this was an online source. Because I am no longer enrolled at my university, I am having a really hard time accessing scientific papers and stuff like that. There is definitely some issue in getting my hands on primary documents when they are locked behind paywalls and I can't find another way to get them. So I'm curious where you found this source, because I mean, this is a wealth of information on the topic. I wish I had this for my video.
And the find consisted of 4 unglazed ceramic jars.
All right, here's the biggest mistake that we all make.
Here it is, folks. Oh God, what's it gonna be?
I made it when I was talking about it on the podcast, and Milo's making it right here.
I can hear the sound of the red pen opening. D-.
They're going to tell you it was found in a group of 4. It was not.
Fuck! God damn it. Okay. Was not found in a group of 4. We're gonna get through this, Louis.
The one from Kuyut Rabawa in 1936 was found on its own. There was only one.
That is something which was not only not talked about, but it was discussed incorrectly in almost every single one of the papers that I read. The one jar became 4 jars, and the location where it was found ended up being somewhere 15 miles away from Baghdad instead of only 4. So, interesting how information changes over time if there's no one there to fact check it.
Across the river Tigris is the site called Seleucia. In 1930, he reports 4 of these jars.
Okay, so 4 were found in a different location that were similar.
When Koenig talked about this in 1938, he talks about the one that he was analyzing, and then he goes and he looks for comparenda. And he found these 4 that Waterman had excavated in 1930. So that's why people conflate it. They're getting secondary or tertiary reports and not going to the original. In the original German, he says, got this one, okay, here's these other 4 I'm going to compare them to.
That explains how it happened. Okay, good to know.
So I went and found Waterman's original reports.
Of course you did. I'm so glad you did.
The sealed jar is one of 4 examples found during the closing days of the 1930 season at Trial Trench 30. All are small jars from 6 to 8 inches in height of very common unglazed ware. All were sealed with bitumen stoppers, and each was held in place by small rods set upright at the ends and sides. These rods were from 6 to 10 inches long and projected slightly above the jars. Each jar had 1 iron rod, the rest being of bronze.
I am so stoked I decided to do a video out of this because this is such important information for people who enjoyed the last video. I'm really thrilled to be able to have a community where the people who do reactions to my videos have such rich, intelligent, and intellectual things to add to it. Like, this is just such great information to have, and I'm thrilled. This makes me so fucking happy. This is awesome.
Each of the 3 horizontally placed jars contained a small bronze cylinder originally sealed at both ends.
Interesting, bronze cylinder. In the one jar, I guess, that was analyzed in my video, there was no discussion of bronze.
Each cylinder originally contained what appears as a tightly wrapped roll.
So this must be the papyrus jar, I want to say.
The third appears to be intact and gives the impression of a roll of paper.
Yes, there we go.
There you go. We've got all 3 of the ones that are lying down. They have papyrus inside the copper roll.
All 3 of the ones laying down have papers inside of the copper roll. That's incredible information.
Milo says we don't know anything about them in situ. About the ones at Seleucia, we absolutely do know.
And there I think is a perfect, pertinent example of context for all of you watching. If you found 4 jars that all contained papyrus in them, and then another jar that looked similar somewhere else with something else in it, you could probably determine what the locations were used for, what the jars were used for. If you have all of these things amassed in a packing container and then unpack them all as if they were from one site, the person who's looking at them is going to be pretty damn confused.
Even with all of the information, I'm not necessarily right. I don't know what these really are. But when he says that the others are functionally different, I think he's wrong.
And I think that you are right, Dr. Hafford. I do think that they would be functionally the same now that I know that they all had functionally the same stuff inside of them. So you're absolutely right about that.
And remember that, I mean, his drawing shows 4 identical jars. They're not identical. Even at the Seleucia ones, 2 of them were missing that neck. Basically, this is a fairly common jar type.
Oh my god, I didn't even think of the fact that it could be a broken... I did not even consider the idea that this could have a longer neck at one point that was broken off.
That neck has a handle on it. Well, if you break that neck off, you get what looks like what we're showing here is a Baghdad jar.
Man, that just blew my mind. That is a really... I did not even think about that. I got so tunnel vision of looking at it as a jar that I didn't even think that it could be part of a larger structure. I was going to draw it, but my head's in the way. What would I be doing that for?
A themed drink every single video.
Oh no. Man, I cannot believe I am watching a doctor of archaeology watch me drink for my job.
Which we are going to call the Baghdad Battery.
Yeah, Milo's a lot of fun, and I like that he's teaming up with a mixologist.
I'm glad you like it, man. I'd be more than happy to share a drink with you at some point.
I think I'm tempted.
Oh my god! No fucking way! He actually makes the drink?
All right, Baghdad Battery.
Dr. Hafford, I don't say this lightly, but you may be very close in the running for my archaeologist idol now. This coveted position was previously taken by one of my favorite professors from college, but my favorite professor from college never drank when I... So you might be coming for his title. I would be curious as to why you have apricots in your house. I feel like not many people keep those around. But then again, you are a Near East archaeologist, and apricots are a Mediterranean thing, so I don't know. Maybe it makes you feel like you're close to your dig sites. That was how you did it, you know, like COVID, you can't like go overseas and whatnot, so just eat some apricots, I guess. It's almost the next best thing.
As we saw in the experiments carried out by Mythbusters and by Smith University, Baghdad
Oh, little man! You okay, buddy? You can let go of the bed now. You're already on the ground. All right, Louis gonna eat a candle.
As we saw in the experiment, the Baghdad battery is actually capable of producing power.
It can function as a battery if you construct it in the idealized way.
You use perfect terminology here, Dr. Hafford. I think that you use the word idealized very well. That's a really good way of putting it, is the idealized way. And this is something that we see a lot, especially in carvings. In the case of the Dendera light motif, it's very easy to look at this picture and then just make a light bulb that looks like that picture. Similarly, in the case of the Baghdad battery, it's very easy to look at the drawings and remaining documents discussing the Baghdad battery and then just make a battery that looks like it.
They were inside the neck of the jar, and we don't have any wires to make those contacts anyway.
That's a great little detail there, that one of the other jars actually had 3 copper pieces inside of it. That's kind of interesting.
And the last and probably most important piece of evidence for why I think that the electroplating theory is incorrect is that there has not been a single piece of electroplated material found anywhere in the ancient Parthian Empire.
I really hope he's not about to say that I'm wrong about this, because I researched this one really heavily so I can say it with that level of certainty. Am I right? Let's find out.
Yeah, I agree with Milo.
Oh my god, that was like a breath of fresh air. Jesus.
There are some theories which suggest that the battery could have been used for ceremonial purposes. And you touch it and you go, ooh, God must be real.
You didn't laugh at my joke, Dr. Hafford. I thought that was very funny.
One of my favorite books growing up, which is, for those of you who've heard of it, Motel of the Mysteries.
Does he know Motel of the Mysteries? This is $1 million question.
And every single time I hear an archaeologist not know what something is and just assume that it is, you know, like, oh, it's ceremonial purpose, it always makes me think of that. Could have been ceremonial, but I think it's a very funny topic.
I love the Motel of the Mysteries. I have a copy in my office.
Yes, he knows it! My man!
It sounds like Milo's suggesting that archaeologists say it's ceremonial to cover up that they don't know.
I promise I don't mean that they do it when they don't know, but it is funny to say they do. Okay, I'm not saying that they do it to cover up the fact they don't know. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that has been done before. The last thing I want to make it sound like is that archaeologists don't have reasons for saying the things that they do. But there's sort of been this joke in a lot of the archaeology communities that I've come across online, like through my networking with TikTok and even through my university, where there's a little bit of a little scoff that will happen every time someone says something is used for fertility rites or for a ritual or ceremonial purposes. And now again, most of the time people do know very strongly what these things were used for. But when I hear the word ceremony, I think of something very broad. Ceremony can be pretty much anything you want. And so by calling something a ceremonial item and drawing the line there is kind of, I wouldn't say it's a cop-out, I would say it's vague. Because in a way, as Motel of the Mystery does, I guess, correctly say, maybe toilet seat is part of a bit of a ceremony.
We do have a joke amongst archaeologists that when we don't know what something is, we will call it ritual.
Okay, there you go. So you are familiar with the same joke. In that case, I mean it with all of the jest of that. I mean in no way to undermine the fact that archaeologists obviously know what they're talking about. You know, it is kind of their job.
You know, Milo might not like it, but in fact, the best interpretation of the Baghdad battery type is that it's a ritual object, not ever a battery.
You're right. I hate it. But in all honesty, if I were to pick one of the options which I gave in this video, again, these are far from the only options, this is the one which would make the most sense to me. Because it's not enough of a voltage to power anything, we don't have any evidence of electroplating, but that volt that you would be getting out of the battery is enough that you probably would be able to feel it in some way. Again, I'm not an electrician, but in my Googling, I found that probably feel a volt. And honestly, I would say that would be a pretty good use for it. If you lived in a world that didn't really have a concept of what electricity was and you went up to something and you felt an electrical shock, that would honestly be a pretty impressive thing.
One of the running theories is a vessel in which to store papyrus.
So getting to my final point in the video, we are going to run into the issue that two finds were conjoined together in a lot of the sources I was looking at. So take with a grain of salt the fact that these papyrus jars were not actually found with the Baghdad battery, as I'm sure he will go on to tell us.
Would improve its lifespan.
That's not what the theory is. It's not to keep papyrus dry so that you can take it out and either read it or write on it or anything like that. Instead, it's all about putting in small written slips of paper in a ritual way.
Our ritual idea might be getting a little bit more concrete.
First of all, many more of them than just the one that Milo says had papyrus in them. Many of them did. And secondly, we have texts that tell us about doing this kind of thing. Basically what it is you write spells out on paper. You do it on lead sometimes.
Dude, this is cool. I had no idea about this. Oh my god.
You roll that up and you put it into usually a subterranean environment because it's going to be sent to the gods. There's two things you want to do. First of all, protect yourself from evil, or maybe send evil to other people's way. There are very thin lead sheets with curses written on them. About 1,600 of them have been found.
Dude, what? That is so sick. Oh my god, I had no idea about this.
They would write, curse my neighbor because, you know, and then they would wrap it up and they'd throw it in a well or they might bury it. Or this is a ritual, magical context of the four at Seleucia. We know they were found together. They were found in a rectangular foundation of a building, and that's a ritual context. We still do things like this today. You know, the mayor comes out with the big golden scissors, cuts the ribbon. It's a ritual, a ceremony, and those giant scissors are a material correlate. If an archaeologist found those, what would they think?
That it was giants.
That there was a giant around here using scissors?
Yes, exactly.
In foundation deposits, you will sometimes get these things to protect the building and the people who live in that building. The three that were found were on their sides. They have these nails around them. Even metaphorically, you can see that this anchors it. You can nail things together and it holds them. Well, the iron nail binds the spell.
I'm really sorry if there's just a really long clip of his video here. I really don't want to be the guy who's just stealing content. I promise I'm not trying to do that, but this is just, it's fucking fascinating. I feel like this is something that needs to be talked about, and I'd feel like a fraud if I was just like, I'm gonna just say this in another video. So I promise I'm presenting this in an effort to spread the wonderful knowledge that we are hearing here today.
One of them had 3 cylinders in it. Another one had 10 cylinders in it, very small.
My God. Who pissed them off? Man, I really wish that these jars were preserved in a way that would have allowed for the papyrus to survive. Because if I'm remembering correctly from the primary sources at the beginning of this video, they kind of came out as dust. And I know that there's been a lot of strides taken recently in attempts to read papyrus and paper that is so old that you can no longer fold it open, so it is effectively just one giant roll. They've been doing a lot of work in order to develop scans and ways that they could theoretically be able to read these incredibly fragile papers all the way through. Like, there are libraries worth of these documents that we just can't read because they're too fragile to open. So it really makes you wonder, it would be just fascinating to have 10 jars full of curses.
These were all blessings, probably.
I would love to know what someone felt necessary to curse someone for back then. I'd imagine it would probably be similar to what we do now. My boss, he works me too hard. I hate him. He's awful. I hope he steps on a serpent. Goat shit. He's so annoying. Curse you. I hope you get gored by a bull.
The 4 that were found at Seleucia were also found in the same context with what some people call magic bowls. But Waterman, who found them, and these 4 Baghdad batteries, reports them as incantation bowls, which is a much better term. It's a shallow bowl that's usually found upside down, and inside it are written spells. They're usually spiraling down, and sometimes there's a drawing of a demon in chains, because that's what the bowl does. It traps a demon. Put it underneath your threshold, so if anything evil, spirit, tries to come into your house, it gets sucked into the bowl and trapped. We're not making this up. To claim that saying something's ritual is a cop-out, it can be, but when you've got this kind of evidence, you've got to realize that that's what these things are doing. They're functioning together with the incantation bowls in this context. It's the best context we have.
I'm going to say very confidently that I'm very glad that I may or may not have accidentally implied that anything dubbed as a ritual purpose is a cop-out, because it gave us one of the most dense yet fascinating lessons about, bowls and scrolls that I think I've ever received in my life. So, Dr. Hafford, I'm going to have to include more mistakes in my upcoming videos because it seems to be a great way to get a really interesting lesson from you. I always just love and am captivated by listening to a professional archaeologist's brain work, piecing together a site, trying to apply their knowledge and their extensive, history of the site to why it was possibly positioned in the way that it was and what each part of it meant. Dr. Hafford here does a fantastic job of piecing together the theoretical context that the site could have been found in just by his knowledge of the history and the parts that we know were found somewhere near it. Incredible, really fascinating stuff.
We can understand why people are afraid of things like disease. If you didn't understand germs and viruses and bacteria, what can you do but try to comfort yourself with rituals? So, in my mind, there is so much evidence for the ritual interpretation of these objects that we have to accept it unless we get better evidence.
You know what, Dr. Hafford? I would say that you have somewhat convinced me. I'm going to change my stance at the end of the Baghdad Battery video, which was that I do not know what it is, and I'm going to assume that it is an incorrectly interpreted ceremonial item. What that ceremony is, I'm not entirely sure, and hopefully we'll find them someday so that we can analyze them further. But from what you are saying here, I can find no immediate flaws in your deduction, and your knowledge of the site is extensive, as well as the local history, so I can give you the highest compliment that someone who has spent years in the field could receive. That is being told by someone very new to the field. Damn, dude. You really know what you're talking about.
Crack the thing open and get some scientists looking at it. Well, unfortunately, we can't do that. On April 10th, first looter broke into the National Museum of Iraq.
I'm curious to hear what he's going to have to say on the looting of the Iraq National Museum, because, this is probably something he's all too painfully familiar with.
And alongside the laundry list of missing irreplaceable artifacts were a collection of 4 5-inch tall clay jars, which today we call the Baghdad batteries. To this day, they have not been recovered, and their whereabouts are still unknown.
I can't confirm that. I don't know that he can either.
Well, actually, I'm going to confirm it right now. I'm going to go look for the Baghdad batteries, and I'll be right back. Okay, I couldn't find them anywhere in the greater Providence, Rhode Island area, so I'm going to say that they're pretty lost.
The records in the Iraq National Museum were largely destroyed in that looting. So it's been very difficult to make a good inventory. They're still working on it. I know Colonel Bogdanos made a database. The University of Chicago has a database in order to be able to tell what's coming back in.
That's an interesting point. I was unaware of the fact that the database and records of what was in the museum itself was actually destroyed during this. I can only imagine how much more difficult that would make it to recover or even know if you've recovered lost artifacts. It's one thing to have a checklist of all the stuff you're looking for. It's another thing to just be told that you're looking for stuff.
There was one thing, and I think the Guardian said that it was taken, but was it? How do they know? More likely it got broken or destroyed in the looting, I think. Not all of them are in Baghdad anyway. Some are in Germany. The 6 from Ctesiphon, I think at least some of them are there. In fact, Pastori did analyze them in the 1980s.
So that's interesting. There is a chance that they were broken. There's a chance that they are still somewhere. Maybe they got, I don't know, kicked behind a couch or something like that. But functionally, the Baghdad battery does not exist to us. We do not have a concrete idea of its whereabouts. We cannot analyze it, and therefore it will be, at this very moment, impossible to determine exactly what it is.
Maybe we could learn a lot if we could study it, but we know a lot more than has been presented. I hope that I have shown you some of what we know and why I think what I do.
You do think what you do, and you did tell us why you think it. And for that, I tip my hat to you, sir.
So I will just say, I really do like your videos, Milo. I hope that I haven't come across as too negative. I'm just showing that there is more evidence.
Not in the slightest, Dr. Hafford, and I hope that I have not done the same for you. I greatly appreciate your input in this video. You have an unbelievable wealth of knowledge to share with the world. I am thrilled to see that you are on YouTube creating content. The YouTube channel that Dr. Hafford is reporting from is right here. Please, if you have not already, subscribe to him, check out his content. His stuff is awesome, and I mean, you've gotten a good profile of who he is through this video, and if you liked this, I promise you'll like the rest of it.
And I want you to continue doing these, and I love watching them. So I'll just say cheers. Well, I've just engaged in a ritual.
Oh shit, we got a ritual alert.
And say, I look forward to seeing your next video. Cheers.
Dr. Hafford, oh my god. This shit goes so hard. I'm really glad that I did this video, actually. The things that Dr. Hafford had to say were incredibly intelligent, insightful, and based on a career of knowledge. Again, the biggest ego boost I can take from this is the fact that this is the caliber of people who react to my content. I am not by any stretch going to act like I am a professional career archaeologist. I'm very new in my career, but the fact that I have, you know, the eyes of people who spend their lives doing this have turned to me, and even that they're criticizing the things I say is humbling and thrilling at the very least. And I also want this to stand as a testimony to my viewers. I am always going to be here, and I am always going to provide you with the facts as I find them. But the most important thing about science is not backing yourself into a corner. Even if you believe every word that comes out of my mouth, I encourage you to find other creators and other academics who are willing to challenge what I say. And more importantly, I want you to challenge what I say. I want you to think about the things I say to you with the lens of this video we just watched. I did not knowingly bring anything to you that was wrong, but there are things that just required a different set of eyes in order to understand better. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching this video. I promise that the next episode of Awful Archaeology discussing the Gosford glyphs will be out as soon as I can, though at the moment I'm working on the next Human Origins video that should be out hopefully by the time you see this. Once again, I'd like to thank Dr. Hafford for contributing his time to help educate the masses, and I would like to thank my patrons for making this video possible. As always, patrons get early ad-free access to all of my videos. If you'd like to be on my patron, stuff about that is going to be in my description, and your name will be in the credits of this video as a small token of my gratitude. Remember to stay curious, stay inquisitive, and most importantly, remember to check your sources.